Alex, I was out in the garage last night trying to quickly print a prototype for a new dovetail jig. I swear, watching some of these older 3D printers is like watching a glacier race a tectonic plate. You start a print, go have a three-course meal, take a nap, read a Russian novel, and you come back to find it's maybe 40% done.
Well, maybe if you didn't try to print everything at museum quality resolution, Tiger. But I get it. The patience is a virtue. Thing doesn't really hold up when you've got a deadline and a pile of orders.
Exactly. And that's why the news today feels like someone finally handed us a cheat code. Elegoo just dropped the Centauri 2. Now, they ditched the enclosure on this one, which is basically them saying, look, if you're trying to print high-temp industrial plastics that warp if a mouse sneezes near them, this isn't your horse. But for the rest of us doing PLA and PETG, it's a four-color speed demon.
See, that's the trade-off, right? Accessibility over high-end materials. But I'm looking at these Prusa specs. They're claiming a 40% reduction in print time with their new high-speed PLA. 40%. That's basically gaining 2 days of your life back every week if you're a high-volume maker.
It's the neck extruder nozzles they're pairing it with. It's all about flow rate. It's like the difference between trying to drink a thick milkshake through a coffee stir versus a fire hose. You get that plastic melted and moving, and suddenly your printer isn't just humming, it's screaming.
And let me guess, you've already ordered the E3D Bastion gears to go with it?
Listen, those things have a graphene coating. They're self-lubricating. In my shop, self-lubricating is a love language. Usually my gears end up looking like they've been chewing on sand after a month of heavy use. This is set it and forget it tech. It's the kind of upgrade that lets you sleep at night without worrying about the extruder grinding your filament into a fine confetti midway through a 12-hour job.
Speaking of things that actually work for a living, I saw the headline about the $50 million investment. That is a massive chunk of change for the trades.
It's huge. Google is putting 50 mil toward labor unions and trade orgs. It's refreshing, honestly. For decades, the narrative was get a degree or get left behind. Now, there's a realization that someone actually needs to know how to wire the server farms that run the AI.
It's not just the corporate money, though. The Pell Grant change is the real kicker for me. Being able to use those grants for short-term vocational programs, that's a game changer for someone who can't commit 4 years to a desk, but has the grit to spend 6 months learning HVAC or electrical.
I wish that was around when I started. I spent my early 20s eating ramen and borrowing electricity from my neighbor's outdoor outlet just to keep my first welder running. Taking away that financial wall, it turns I wish I could into I'm starting Monday. If you're listening to this and you've got that itch to build things that actually matter to the infrastructure of the world, there's never been a better time to get your ticket.
It's the Tiger tip of the day. Check your local community college or union hall. The money is literally sitting there waiting for people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. Okay, let's pivot to the maker mogul side of things. You talk a lot about efficiency, but sometimes I feel like you just enjoy moving fast. Is there a method to the madness?
It's not about being a caffeinated squirrel, Alex. It's about the batch and bottleneck. I learned this the hard way when I took an order for 50 cutting boards. I spent the first day doing one board from start to finish. Sanding, oiling, buffing. By sunset, I had one board and a very tired back.
Let me guess, you realized you were doing 50 times the setup work?
Precisely. I was a disaster. The maker mogul moves differently. You set up a dedicated spray station, and you don't touch a brush until all 50 pieces are ready. You do all your rips, then all your crosses, then all your sanding. You treat your shop like a river. If there's a rock in the middle causing a pileup, whether it's a slow printer or a messy shipping table, you move the rock first.
But doesn't speed kill quality? That's the fear everyone has. If I go fast, it'll look like I went fast.
That's the secret, though. Efficiency isn't rushing, it's removing the friction. If your tools are sharp and your process is dialed, you aren't working harder, you're just not stopping to find your tape measure every 10 minutes. If the finish suffers, your brand dies. But if you can produce premium work at a rhythm, that's how you actually pay the mortgage with a side hustle.
You mentioned modern DIY hacks in the notes today. I have to call you out on the SketchUp thing. Isn't part of the fun of DIY just, winging it? Measuring once, cutting 3 times, and then crying in the lumber aisle at Home Depot?
Listen, I've got a scrap pile that's basically a redwood forest of my own failures. I love the winging it spirit, but plywood is $40 a sheet now. It's not the 1990s. Using SketchUp to map out a shelf before you even pull the saw off the wall, it's like having a map of the minefield before you walk into it.
It sounds a bit clinical for a weekend warrior project.
It's the opposite. It frees you up. When I know exactly where my cuts are going to land, I can actually enjoy the build. I'm not sweating whether the last piece is going to be 2 inches short. And while we're on the subject of small wins, get a battery-powered stirrer for your paint and finishes.
Wait, a stirrer? Like a milk frother?
Pretty much. You ever open a can of stain and the pigment is sitting at the bottom like a layer of stubborn mud? You shake it, you stir it with a stick, you still get streaks. One of those little motorized mixers gives you a perfectly consistent coat every time. It's a tiny thing, but it's the difference between a project that looks homemade and one that looks handcrafted.
Homemade versus handcrafted. I like that. It's the little details that keep people from realizing your workshop is actually just a garage with 3 different brands of sawdust on the floor.
Hey, my sawdust is carefully curated. But look, the takeaway for today, for whether you're printing, building, or looking at a career, is that the tools and the funding are finally catching up to the talent. Whether it's Google's 50 million or a 40% faster roll of PLA, the world is practically begging us to build something.
So basically, no more excuses.
Exactly. Stop staring at the wood and start the saw. Just maybe check the SketchUp file one more time first.
Spoken like a man who has definitely cut his last piece of oak too short.
More times than I care to admit on an open mic, Alex. More times than I care to admit.